if you have destroyed trust in a relationship, I will teach you how to get it back. But it's going to take time, and probably, just for the record, more time than you'd actually like to spend. By the way, my name is Jason Van Ruler. I am a licensed therapist. I'm a CSAT supervisor, so I do a lot of work with couples trying to heal after infidelity. And I've got thousands of clinical hours that I'm basing this opinion off of. And also, we're using some existing models and research, but I'm going to walk you through all of it. So here's the main thing is, if you're a person who has betrayed trust in a relationship, or if you're in a relationship where trust has been betrayed, it is really, really painful. It's painful on both sides, right? It's painful if you've been the betrayer, and it's also painful if you've been the one betrayed. And I'm not here to measure which one is worse, but I am here to tell you that the fundamental key to rebuilding that relationship is going to be trust. And what's really challenging about trust is that it's tough to rebuild. In fact, so difficult, many clients, many couples choose just to end their relationship instead of to try to rebuild it. Now, I don't tell you that to be negative or pessimistic, but I tell you that because I want you to understand the gravity of the situation. I talk to clients a lot about this, which is, if I were to meet with you and we were sitting across from each other in my office and I said, you know what, I have actually got to go to the restroom, but I've got my wallet and my wallet is laid on the table, and so I go to the restroom because I believe that I can trust you, right? So I go to the restroom and I come back, and for whatever reason I decide I want my wallet back now, and I pick it back up and I look into it, and thankfully I've got kids, so my wallet's always empty anyway, but I look through my wallet and I realize that you have stolen money from me. My question to you would be this: if that happened to you, if you trusted me enough to leave your wallet in front of me unattended, and then you came back and looked at it and realized that I had actually stolen from you, but hadn't elected to tell you that, but had just taken the money, and you had to confront me, how long would it take for you to lay that wallet back on the table in front of me and leave me unattended? Now, it would take a really long time, I think. I mean, at least for me, for most people, that would be really, really challenging because, again, we've got this already existing track record that we can't trust you in that situation. And so what's really, really difficult for relationships is that some version of this happens. It's usually not about the wallet. It's about the person you said you weren't talking to, or the thing you said you weren't looking at, or the money you didn't spend, or whatever that thing is. It's about some version of that. And then we get caught. And when we're caught, we feel terrible. We feel ashamed because the truth is we don't want to hurt anybody. And people who betray other people are often not people who set out to wound or break or injure their person. They just make poor decisions. And sometimes they make repeated poor decisions or have addictive behaviors that lead them there. But the gist of it is, oftentimes they did not think this through. They're not thinking about this outcome, but here we are. And what do we do if we're in a situation where we have to trust the other person? We maybe have kids together, or we've got a business together, or we're trying to have a romantic relationship together. What do we do now that there is no more trust? Well, let's talk about that. So there are actually 3 levels of trust according to the model that I use, and I'll link that model in the comments. But the 3 levels of trust, I'm going to walk you through each of them. The most basic level of trust is witnessing. You are witnessing me on this video. You're watching that now. If your partner came in, they would see you watching this. And so therefore, they're witnessing you doing something. And so that is trust based solely on the fact that they can see you, right? If you ever heard that comment that's saying, I trust him only as far as I can see him, this would be the most basic level of trust. The second level of trust is verifying. And so basically what that is that I'm a step past having to see them do everything, but I want to be able to verify it. So where I work with couples is a lot of times someone might struggle with pornography. They might say, hey, I'm not doing that. And the spouse or partner might say, I really want to believe you, but pull up your internet history. Or I really want to believe you, but pull up the bank account. Have you in fact spent money? Or I want to believe you're not talking to this person, but show me your messages, your DMs. Whatever that thing is, we have a degree more than having to just simply witness, but we do want to verify from a trusted source. The highest, number 3 level of trust is experiential trust. And experiential trust can be thought of like this. Experiential trust is that person just feels they can trust you because it's your identity. They feel like it is who you are. And so if you say, hey, I'm going to go to the store and I'm going to do this errand and then I'm going to come home, they actually just believe you. Like, they don't ask for photos along the way, or they don't actually question you about it after the fact. They just assume that they can trust what you said. And experiential trust is what we're really all going for, isn't it? Because the other stuff is a lot of work. But here's what typically happens. We give experiential trust to people pretty freely, and especially in the beginning of a relationship. When we're dating, we're just really awestruck and we want it to work and we love the other person, and so we just hand out this experiential trust until we're given a reason not to. And then when we're given a reason not to, we lose it. And so here's the mistake a lot of people make, is that they betray someone and then they immediately expect to get that experiential trust back. And the challenge with that is, even though you were maybe just given it freely, you can't just get it back because you demand it. It just doesn't work that way. And in fact, if roles were reversed and you're in the same situation, I stole all of your money out of your wallet, you wouldn't expect to just do the same thing the next time. In fact, that'd be kind of odd. And so what I want to challenge you on is, if you're trying to rebuild trust, what you need to really do is you need to spend a lot of time doing things that are able to be witnessed and able to be verified. And so that's why when I work with clients, they're often very, very sorry that they betrayed the other person. And what they will do is they will say a bunch of things. And while saying the right thing sounds great, it's definitely a step, ultimately saying the right thing is much different than doing the right thing. And so if we're going to start just on that first basic level of trust, which again is witnessing, the other person needs to witness you doing things differently. So if you say, I'm actually going to stick to a budget, or I won't be looking at this content, or I won't contact that person, like, they need to see you changing and being different. Because if they don't see that, they're not going to trust you. The next level is verifying. So maybe you say, hey, I've stuck to a budget this week. I've done really, really well with spending. And let's pull up the account and let's look at it. And so now we have both something they've witnessed as well as something they can verify. And when we do this often enough, what happens eventually is that experiential trust is regained. And what we think about as the ways that we get back to that experiential trust are to do the levels. But in order to do the levels, we need three things, okay? So the three things that we need to work through the levels are, number one, and this is the most basic thing, it's to be willing. If you are unwilling to work the process and you simply expect the other person to trust you, none of this is going to work. You are not going to convince them, because trust is a very interesting thing. It's a felt sense, but it's also based on what has occurred and what has happened and all the data that we have. And so if you just expect the person to give you trust back, that's actually not a great thing, and that's not lasting trust. And so the first thing we need is to be willing. Are you willing to actually work for it? If you are, that's great. If you're not, that's where the conversation needs to occur, is what are we going to do about that? The second thing is we need consistency. So maybe I want to regain trust and I want to rebuild my relationship, and I try today. Well, that's amazing, and I would celebrate that. It's very good to try today. And yet, what about tomorrow? What about the day after? The day after? Now, so many couples I work with, trust is broken. And what they say to me consistently is, Jason, the other person tries when we're in crisis because they're reactive, but give it a week, give it a month, give it 3 months, and they just go back to the old way of being. And so first, we need willingness. Second, we need consistency. So you need to just keep doing that over and over again. And then thirdly, we need time. Now, time is the difficult one, because that's just something that has to happen, right? We need to be consistent over time, meaning if you've broken or betrayed someone's trust, you cannot expect that they'll just give that back to you the first day or week. It is going to take time to earn that. So if you have broken trust, or you're in a relationship where maybe you've been betrayed or hurt, this is really important information. So remember, again, we have the 3 levels of trust. We have witnessing, verifying, and experiential. And remember, experiential is just, I experience a feeling of trust around you. And the 3 ways that we get there are, we are willing, so we're willing to do the work. We're willing to have the conversations and to try. We are consistent. We don't just do it one time and then quit. We continue to do it. And then number 3 is that there is a period of time through which this happens, right? And it occurs and it's sustainable. When we have that sustainable change, people begin to trust us. Okay, so all that's great. So maybe you're doing all those things and you're beginning to earn experiential trust back. And now here's where so many people go wrong, is they begin to get a semblance of trust to get into the relationship. And then what they do is they screw up in some way. Probably not as big as they screwed up in the first place, but they mess up. And then what they do with that mess up is they decide that they just shouldn't say anything because it'll actually hurt trust more. And you're missing it. If you think that, I get why you think that, but it's just altogether wrong. You need to tell the other person. So if you're trying to stick to a budget and you blow it on week 7, you should initiate the conversation about that, because people tend to trust people who initiate conversations and are accountable and responsible even when they don't have to be. So have that conversation. The other thing I want you to be really aware of is that if you betray this person again and you don't talk to them about it and they have to confront you, recognize that, the whole wallet thing, Like, I'm a pretty nice guy. I've got a lot of grace for people. And so that happened once, I'd be pretty understanding. Like, I'd let you work back to it. If it happened twice, I would now be pretty suspicious. But goodness, if we worked together long enough that on the third time I left you unattended with my wallet, you in fact stole the money, now I feel stupid, right? And when I feel stupid, the relationship is over because now it's on me. Now I'm continuing to trust someone who is not in fact trustworthy. And at some point I have to be responsible. And so when people come to me and they say, I keep trying to rebuild trust and then I mess up, but I don't tell them, they have to confront me. And now it's more and more difficult. That's because over time, there is less and less hope that you can rebuild trust. Because again, after so many times, what is the other person supposed to expect? They can't start over, they can't start anew because they know the history that they have with you. And so what happens is they get in a position where they say, you know what? Actually, I'm just not going to leave this out anymore. I think what's best for us is I don't leave this out. And this could be a wallet, it could be a credit card, it could be their heart, their vulnerability, their livelihood, whatever that thing is. They decide that it's just better to protect it than to trust you with it because you're not trustworthy. And so if you want to do this, here's what I want to tell you. It's going to be a challenge, but I think you can do it. But you have to stick to the model. And along the way, you have to recognize that it will go on their pace. If you're rebuilding trust, it'll be about the person who is wounded, not about how quickly you think they should trust you. And so if you can stick in that place and do this over time, you will in fact rebuild trust. And by the way, I've seen so many couples do it and been able to walk with them, which has been something I'm immensely grateful for. So it is very possible. I wouldn't tell you it is if it wasn't, but you do have to follow the model. You do have to take it one day at a time, and you do really have to be willing to work through it. Because again, as I said at the beginning, not every couple is going to do this, and for good reason. It's no judgment against them. It's difficult to do, but if you stick it out, you do the work, that's your best hope, and it is possible. Follow me for more.